Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my August wrap up, so all of the books that I read in August. I will tell you what the books were, tell you what they're about, and what I thought about them. I hope that these videos are interesting to people, but also just provide good ASMR content. I know that I really like having a kind of reliable topic throughout the whole video when I'm watching an ASMR video, and I like listening to people talk in general. So I hope that this is relaxing, and if you read as well, that it's interesting, and if you do, let me know what books you read this month in the comments, and if you read any of the same books that I did, maybe. I would love to hear, and without further ado, I think we'll just get into the books. There won't be a ton of tapping and other noises in this video because I actually only read one physical book in August. So normally I'm sort of tapping on each book as I talk about them, but I mainly read on my Kindle in August, and I've just been loving my Kindle, especially when I'm reading at night, which is mainly when I've been reading. It's just, as people always say, it's way more comfortable to use a Kindle than to have to keep open a physical book. And it has the light built right into it. You can adjust the brightness. You can have the warm light. You can have dark mode or light mode. So I also find it really easy on my eyes. I have been loving that, and I've still been buying books, physical books, and I just tell myself that it's a collection, that I'm building a collection, which is true. And I still plan on reading physical books, but especially the ones that I have like a real desire to buy and that are pretty to me. But yeah, I've been preferring the Kindle. So there won't be much tapping, much noises. It'll mainly just be my voice. But there was one book that I read that was a physical book, so I'll bring that out when the time comes. But so I'll get started telling you about the books that I read. The first book I read was 7 Days in June. This is a romance by Tia Williams. This is a book that was highly anticipated for me because I've heard so many people talk about it and say that it's sort of like their favorite romance, or it's like it's really special to them, and I had high hopes for it. So I am going to read the synopsis for each book, but I'm going to be looking at my computer to do that, okay? So, 7 Days in June. Brooklynite Eva Mercy is a single mom and best-selling erotica writer who is feeling pressured from all sides. Jane Hall is a reclusive, enigmatic, award-winning literary author who, to everyone's surprise, shows up in New York. When Shane and Eva meet unexpectedly at a literary event, sparks fly, raising not only their past buried traumas, but the eyebrows of New York's black literary. What no one knows is that 20 years earlier, teenage Eva and Shane spent one crazy, torrid week madly in love. They may be pretending that everything is fine now, but they can't deny their chemistry, or the fact that they've been secretly writing to each other in their books ever since. Over the next 7 days in the middle of a steamy Brooklyn summer, Eva and Shane reconnect, but Eva's not sure how she can trust the man who broke her heart, and she needs to get him out of New York so that her life can return to normal. But before Shane disappears again, there are a few questions she needs answered. With its keen observations of Black life and the condition of modern motherhood, as well as the consequences of motherlessness, 7 Days in June is by turns humorous, warm, and deeply sensual. So, I would say that that's true, from my perspective, but it's strange because this book hasn't really stuck with me. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and if you want to follow me on there, by the way, I really keep it updated, so if you're ever, if you really care about, what I'm reading, could follow me. I gave it 4 stars, because I did like it, but it's one of those books where, for me, it didn't have that 5-star feeling, and I think I knew when I was reading it that it wasn't going to stick with me, and it hasn't. It could be partly because I expected something a little bit different from this book. I thought that it was going to be, I don't know why, but I thought that it was going to be really serious, and it's not. It's, there are quite a few, lighter moments, funny moments, and it definitely deals with some heavy topics, so check trigger warnings if you're going to read it, but it was much more of a rom-com than I expected, so I think in my brain it was a little bit confused and, just not what I expected. So that could have influenced things, maybe I was in the mood for a really serious romance, but I didn't get that. But yeah, it was good, and I wouldn't say it was badly written or anything, but it wasn't as I was reading it, I thought, oh, this is really amazing writing. And yeah, I had a hard time remembering what even happened and what the plot was. But yeah, I did I think, if I'm remembering right, I did remember I did like the, banter between the two characters, and the way that they talk to each other. And I do think that I found it funny. Like, I actually might have laughed a couple of times. So, I would still recommend the book for sure if you're into romance at all, if you like second chance romances. That's like the thing in this book. And yeah, if any of those things that I read off from Goodreads sounds like something you'd be into reading about, then definitely. So that was the first book that I read, 7 Days in June. Then I read The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is a fantasy, and I had heard that it also has some romance, but I had heard that this book was similar to the movie Spirited Away, the Ghibli movie, which was the first Ghibli movie I ever watched, and it was only a couple years ago, but that's what started my love for those movies. And people had said that this book felt like that movie, so I was feeling like I would like it. Also, the fact, as I've said before, I like pretty much anything to do with the sea, the ocean, water. So I had high hopes for it, and a lot of people like this book. I mean, pretty much any book I read is it's like, I don't really pick up books unless they're really hyped up, honestly. At this point in my reading journey, anyway, because I just feel like it's, I want to maximize the chances that I'll like it. And so far, I usually do, at least enjoy the books that I read. So I'll read what this one is about. Deadly storms have ravaged Mina's homeland for generations. Floods sweep away entire villages, while bloody wars are waged over the few remaining resources. Her people believe the sea god, once their protector, now curses them with death and despair. In an attempt to appease him, each year a beautiful maiden is thrown into the sea to serve as the sea god's bride, in the hopes that one day the true bride will be chosen and end the suffering. Many believe that Xiong, the most beautiful girl in the village and the beloved Mina's older brother June, may be the legendary true bride. But on the night Xiong is to be sacrificed, June follows Xiong out to sea, even knowing that to interfere is a death sentence. To save her brother, Mina throws herself into the water in Xiong's stead. Swept away to the spirit realm, a magical city of lesser gods and mythical beasts, Mina seeks out the sea god only to find him caught in an enchanted sleep. With the help of a mysterious young man named Shin, as well as a motley crew of demons, gods, and spirits, Mina sets out to wake the sea god and bring an end to the killer storms once and for all. But she doesn't have much time. A human cannot live long in the land of the spirits, and there are those who would do anything to keep the sea god from waking. So, I rated this 3.5, and the issue for me was confused. I found the plot hard to follow. So that could be just me. But that was the issue. I also think that this was one of those books that had a lot of descriptions of the setting and stuff, which I don't love. I would prefer more dialogue, and more like just descriptions of what the character is thinking and feeling. So, it was not as good as I had thought it would be, and there was like some romance in it, but I didn't find it to be that compelling or anything, so there was that too. And yeah, I did like there's like a sibling relationship going on, and I liked that. I thought it was like really heartwarming. But yeah, I think that it just wasn't a book for me. But you would maybe like it if you like books, like I said, that really go into like setting up the picture for you in your mind, like the setting. And if it just sounds interesting to you, the story and stuff. But yeah, that was one of the lower books that I read in August. So that is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. Then I read a thriller. I read my second Frida McFadden book, and it's called Never Lie. Newlyweds Trisha and Ethan are searching for the house of their dreams. But when they visit the remote manor that once belonged to Dr. Adrian Hale, a renowned psychiatrist who vanished without a trace 4 years earlier, a violent winter storm traps them at the estate, with no chance of escape until the blizzard comes to an end. In search of a book to keep her entertained until the snow abates, Trisha happens upon a secret room, one that contains audio transcripts from every single patient Dr. Hale has ever interviewed. As Trisha listens to the cassette tapes, she learns about the terrifying chain of events leading up to Dr. Hale's mysterious disappearance. Trisha plays the tapes one by one late into the night. With each one, another shocking piece of the puzzle falls into place, and Dr. Adrian Hale's web of lies slowly unravels. And then Trisha reaches the final cassette, the one that reveals the entire horrifying truth. So, like I said, this was my second Frida McFadden book, and she just seems like such a reliable author. Both books I gave 5 stars that I've read of hers, so Never Lie and The Handmaid. So that's what it's called, right? The Handmaid. And I loved both of them. I think I liked Never Lie more than The Handmaid. I think maybe just the nature of the story I liked more. And maybe, like, I don't know, I like stories, which is, it's very common in thrillers, but in like horror movies and stuff, but when there's a storm outside and everybody's trapped inside, I actually like that. So that's in this book, and that could be part of why I liked it so much. But she's just such a good writer, and just seems so reliable. Like I said, that like if I know, like, going forward too, that if I when, not if, I feel like reading a thriller, which I do really like thrillers. I usually read 1 or 2 a month. Yeah, I read 2 this month, so it tends to be like I'll read a fantasy or a romance, or maybe 2, and then I need like a palate cleanser, so I'll read a thriller. Or like I really need to read a book that's just really fast, so I'll read a thriller. And yeah, I do like thrillers, like movies too, the genre, and I've been liking horror movies more as I get older. But yeah, so I do think that she's gonna be like my go-to author for that kind of book. And she has a lot already. So if you haven't tried one of her books yet, I would definitely recommend it. This one was very twisty, I think, more so than the other one I read, The Housemaid. And it was very fast-paced. I think I read it in 2 days maybe. And it has, like, it feels more dark and psychological than The Housemaid. So, it's very good. So that was Never Lie. Next, I finished the Crowns of Neaxia series. So I read The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is book number 2. The first book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night, was one of my favorite books that I've read. And, I did take a long break between the books. Could have been 3 or 4 weeks between them. And I think that was good because when I came back to it, I was really into it and being back in the world and stuff. I really like this fantasy world. This book is by Carissa Broadbent. So it is fantasy. It's what some people call a romantasy or a romance fantasy, because the romance is a really big part of it. Maybe the main part of it, honestly. So, and that is the main reason why I loved the first one, is the romance. But I do also just like stories about vampires. This is a vampire world. I talk about the first one in, I think, my last wrap-up video. But let's read the synopsis for this book. So that, again, this is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. In the wake of the Kajari is the tournament that happens every, few years. And it's what the first book is all about. In the wake of the Kajari, everything Aurea once thought to be true has been destroyed. A prisoner in her own kingdom, grieving the only family she ever had, and reeling from a gutting betrayal, she no longer even knows the truth of her own blood. She's left only with one certainty: she cannot trust anyone, least of all Rain. The House of Night, too, is surrounded by enemies. Rain's own nobles are none too eager to accept a turned king, especially who was once a slave, and the House of Blood digs their claws into the kingdom, threatening to tear it apart from the inside. When Rain offers Aurea a secret alliance, taking the deal is her only chance at reclaiming her kingdom and gaining her vengeance against the lover who betrayed her. But to do so, she'll need to harness a devastating ancient power intertwined with her father's greatest secrets. But with enemies closing in on all sides, nothing is as it seems. As she unravels her past and faces her future, Aurea finds herself forced to choose between the bloody reality of seizing power and the devastating love that could be her downfall. So, that probably didn't make much sense to you if you haven't read the first one, but there's a lot of conflict going on with the main character in this book, and some heavy stuff, and it's sort of the first book is an enemies to lovers trope, and this one is too, even more so, I would say. And yeah, the first book in this series is still one of my favorite books. It's behind me right there. And this one I liked less. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. And it's because I liked it and everything, but it felt less about the romance and more about the politics stuff. So, like I said, the biggest reason I liked the first one, I think, is because of the romance. So, yeah. And yes, so part of why I liked the first one too is that it's all based in one place, one kind of, pretty much, one setting, one place. And this second one is more just moving around, and that could have been partly why I liked it less too. But yeah, this is a very, very good romantasy book, I think. And if you're interested in those kind of books at all, I would definitely recommend it. It's also just not fun, but I don't know, it feels the atmosphere feels sort of dark and kind of a more adult version of Twilight to me, one that involves more politics and stuff. So I like that kind of atmosphere, that kind of vibe in a book. But yeah, so that was a good read in August, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. But I will say these books are very long. I didn't realize it because I didn't read the physical book for the first one. I read both on my Kindle, and I didn't realize how long they were because I got this and it's a really thick book, and I looked at the pages and it's 500 something, which is more than I usually read. But now that I think about it, that says a lot about the books because I didn't get bored. So turns out I read 3 thrillers this month, but I will say, I'm going to talk about it, but the next one actually didn't really succeed at being a thriller in my mind. So that was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, or Gillian. So this is a newer thriller that has been around a lot lately. So again, it's a mystery thriller. But yeah, I'm going to talk about that more after. So, can you stop a murder after it's already happened? It is midnight on the morning of Halloween, and Jen anxiously awaits anxiously waits up for her 18-year-old son, Todd, to return home. But worries about his broken curfew transform into something much more dangerous when Todd finally emerges from the darkness. As Jen watches through the window, she sees her funny, seemingly happy teenage son stab a total stranger. She doesn't know who the victim is or why Tom has committed such a devastating act of violence. All she knows is that her life and Todd's have been shattered. After her son is taken into custody, Jen falls asleep in despair. But when she wakes up, it is yesterday. The murder has not happened yet, and there may be a chance to stop it. Each morning when Jen wakes, she is further back in the past, first weeks, then years before the murder, and Jen realizes that somewhere in the past lies the trigger for Todd's terrible crime, and it is her mission to find it and prevent it from taking place. So, as you can see, there's like time travel stuff happening, and it honestly feels a little bit sci-fi, and it does not feel like a thriller. So I was definitely disappointed with this. It felt more like a sci-fi mystery. I do not think it should be called a thriller. And I also just didn't really like the writing in this book. I found it boring. I don't remember, like, the other day somebody was talking about this book, and I was like, yeah, I read that book, and then I was like, I cannot even remember what that book was at all. So I gave it 3 stars. That might be a little high, honestly. I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the story, so I would not recommend that book. Yeah, I don't even think, like, even if you don't care about it not being, like, a thriller, I don't think it's that good. So, that was Wrong Place, Wrong Time. Not that much to say about it. But my next book was one of my favorite books that I've read, and that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. So this is the first book in the Letters of Enchantment series, and this is a newer book. It's not even available to buy yet, and the second book comes out I think it comes out in November or December, but I could be wrong. It's a fantasy. It is, apparently it's a young adult book. And yeah, I think this is another fantasy romance, so the romance is like the biggest part of it. But this book is also, it feels like historical fiction. It's based in like the 1800s, and there's a war going on, and it sort of like seems like the author is trying to depict it as World War II, but they're not actually calling it World War II. It's based in a fantasy world. But this book is so amazing. It's so sweet. The romance is really, really good, and the writing is really beautiful. Like, it's easy to read. It flows really well, but it's also like she has one of those writing styles where it's lyrical kind of. And okay, so I'll tell you what it's about. When 2 young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell and a war among gods to seal their fate forever. After centuries of sleep, the gods are wearing again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish, into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle, for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. So, it's a really, I think, creative premise and story, and yeah, the writing is just so good, and it really does a good job at making you feel things, and I really liked the other relationships in the book too, like not just the love interest in the main character's relationship, but there's some other characters too that are good, and it's dual point of view, the guy and the girl, and I thought that was really good. So it's just such a gorgeous book and story, and yeah, I can't think of like anything bad to say about that book. So yeah, that was Divine Rivals. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of it, and to read the second one. Hopefully it's good too. Okay, the next book I read was the one physical book. So that was Be Treated by Emily Henry. I finally read this. I read Happy Place, her newest release, and earlier in the summer, it might have been May or June, and that book was amazing, and yeah, this was only the second book of hers that I've read, and it feels like it's one of the books of hers that people like the most, and so I was really excited, and of course I read it in the summer, and it's a very summery book. Let me read it. Okay. Augustus Everett is an acclaimed author of literary fiction. January Andrews writes best-selling romance. When she pens A Happily Ever After, he kills off his entire cast. They're polar opposites. In fact, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months they're living in neighboring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block. Then, one hazy evening, one thing leads to another, and they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative ruts. Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy, and January will pen the next great American novel. She'll take him on field trips worthy of a rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of a backwoods death cult, obviously. Everyone will finish a book, and no one will fall in love. Really. So, it's a romance, and yeah, they're both authors, but they write different genres, and it's like a grumpy sunshine kind of trope, but the guy is like grumpy and the girl is more cheerful, and this book, it's called Beach Read, and based on the cover, you kind of picture them on a beach. But, and people talk about it like that, like how it's such a good beach read, which I wouldn't say that it isn't, but they're not, like, on a beach barely at all in the book. They're at their beach houses, and there's a beach there, but they only go to the beach, like, once or twice. So it wasn't as beachy as I thought it was going to be, but it was still really, really good. Really lovely book. The romance is really well done, and I think that Emily Henry is, just as Frida McFadden is a reliable thriller author, I think that Emily Henry is a reliable romance author. I feel like she's just really dialed into how to make you believe in a relationship, and she's really good at writing banter between people and it being cute. And yeah, I don't have anything bad about this book to say other than it's not as beachy as I thought it would be. But yeah, it wasn't like, it hasn't stuck with me that much, but it's very, like, I would reread it, and it makes you feel happy and good. Yeah, so I gave it 5 stars. I couldn't think of anything bad about it. Yeah, very good. It does deal with some other stuff too, like grief and losing people, and people kind of disappointing you, and stuff like that. But mainly it's like, oh, also it's like one of those romances where the guy is like there's some miscommunication stuff going on, which I don't really like usually, but I didn't find it that annoying in this book. Like, I didn't find it that bad. But yeah, that's probably the only bad thing I can think about it. So that was Beach Read. I'm definitely collecting all of Emily Henry's books as I read them, so that's why I had the physical one. I also already have Book Lovers, which I'll read soon, I think. So then I read my first Taylor Adams book. She writes thrillers, and I can't find the synopsis on Goodreads, so I did find this little short one online. So it says, after posting a negative book review, a woman living in a remote location begins to wonder if the author is a little touchy or very, very dangerous in this pulse-pounding novel of psychological suspense and terror from the critically acclaimed author of No Exit and Hairpin Bridge. So this was just such an interesting experience. This is the only thriller that I've read where where I was laughing. It was funny. Not throughout the whole thing, but definitely at multiple points it was funny. And I think that was on purpose. I think that, I don't know if she does this in all of her books, but in this one it felt like she was trying to be satirical. Maybe she wasn't trying to, but that's how I interpreted it. like, this book uses terms like red-pilled, and, yeah, it was just, definitely a thriller, but it was, also funny. It reminded me of watching the movie Bodies, which is like a horror movie, but it's satirical. And, it's effective as like a horror movie, but it's also funny. So I did like this book. I gave it 4 stars because I found it a little too long and a little too, like, I just got bored. And it is a very twisty book, which it might have been a little bit too much of that at the end for me. But it was good. The writing wasn't anything amazing to me, but I think if it didn't have that funny aspect to it, I probably would have rated it lower. But it definitely had, like, me engaged for most of the book, and yeah, it was just like, I would definitely recommend it, but keep in mind that it kind of has these funny things to it. And the premise is good. Like, imagine you write a review or, like, do this, like, talk about books and videos, and then the author turns out to be, like, a psychopath. And, yeah. So it's a good premise. Yeah. So that was the last word. I decided I probably won't run to read her other books. But I think that was because I read, like I was going to read No Exit, her other book, but, or one of her other books, but it sounded a little bit too disturbing for me. We'll see, though. Maybe it's, like, more funny, like this one was, and I would like it. Okay. Now, the 9th and final book that I read was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. So, this is another romance, and it is definitely my number 1 favorite romance book that I've read. So, my ring light just turned off. It might be broken. So, sorry about the bad lighting and the change. But I'm almost done. I just have this last book. And I cannot leave this book out because it could be my favorite book ever. But yeah, it's definitely my favorite romance. So this was huge. That's why August partly was a huge reading month with this and Divine Rivals. So let's read the synopsis. So again, this is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Maisie Sorensen is settling into an ambitious, if emotionally tepid, routine. Work hard as a new pediatrics resident, plan her wedding to an older, financially secure man, keep her head down and heart tucked away. But when she runs into Elliot Petropoulos, the first and only love of her life, the careful bubble she's constructed begins to dissolve. Once upon a time, Elliot was Maisie's entire world, growing from her gangly, bookish friend into the man who coaxed her heart open again after the loss of her mother, only to break it on the very night he declared his love for her. Told in alternating timelines between then and now, teenage Elliot and Maisie grow from heads to much more, grow from friends to much more. spending weekends and lazy summers together in a house outside of San Francisco, devouring books, sharing favorite words, and talking through their growing pains and triumphs. As adults, they have become strangers to one another until their chance reunion. Although their memories are obscured by the agony of what happened that night so many years ago, Elliot will come to understand the truth behind Macy's decade-long silence and will have to overcome the past and himself to revive her faith in the possibility of an all-consuming love. So, nothing bad to say about this book. I read it, I couldn't put it down. I read it in like a day or two. This is my favorite romance between two characters. It has second chance, it has friends to lovers, and it has this sort of coming of age feel to it too, which I liked. And it's like they're coming of age together, which is really cute and really sweet. And it made me feel like this longing to like have this kind of friendship. Although it does deal with like this heavy thing that happens between them, as I kind of alluded to there. But overall, it's like I like that about it too, because it's a lot of the romance books I've read so far are like very, very idealistic, but this one is, but it has this, it really is based in reality though, because it deals with these things that, you know, do happen sometimes, and, yeah, so it felt, realistic, and like more, it was more, you could resonate with it more than a lot of other romance books, I think, for me anyway. So, loved it. Felt giddy at points reading this, and I would like smile and laugh, so that doesn't happen much with me. Very like rereadable and comforting. I feel like I will definitely reread this multiple times, and I just like, it resonated with me a lot, and it made me feel good. So yeah, I think it could be my favorite book. Definitely read this if you're into romance at all, but also if you're not, maybe. It's really good, and really, really good writing, and she has a few other books that I'll try. Like Divine Rivals, it doesn't feel like lyrical like Divine Rivals does, but it feels very, it's good, and it also flows really well. It's really easy to read. It felt like really easy. So that was the last book I read. I think I finished it 2 days ago now, and cherry on top of a good reading month. So that was Love in Other Words, and that concludes this video. Thank you for being here, for watching. Again, let me know what you thought, and let me know what you read, if you read anything, and maybe if you plan on reading any of these books too. But I hope that you're all doing really well, and I feel like I was a bit out of practice with filming videos, so hopefully this was still watchable and relaxing. But I just haven't had the time to film as much as I had feared and talked about a bit before. So thank you for watching and sticking with me. And until next time, thank you